The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat about us. We're with you. It's time to pick up. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's great to have you along for the ride. on this Wednesday, October 18th, Thursday, October 19th. If you're on the East Coast or across the pond, hope you had a great day and night. We are live right here in the Great White North on top of the mountains of central British Columbia as we are here 7 days a week. We welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Like our music, get your horns up for Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy and Sons of Apollo. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. You can find us all over social media, on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show, on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms, either on Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the UPRN chat room, or on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Club. Or if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I'll get to your questions and comments in there as well. Now, if you head to our website, for just $5 a month, you can become a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club. You can also shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Read the Encounter online. Check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We also have great video viewing from Tim Doyle and UFO Seekers, as well as Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. Now, normally, the third Wednesday of every month, we have Mike Morin from Haunted Crew of Canada coming in with a special guest to talk about the haunted happenings here in the Great White North. But due to a family emergency, Mike can't make it tonight, so like hockey, we had to change on the fly. You may have heard Amber Avalona on this show before. She is an intuitive and paranormal investigator, most noted for her work in the Paranormal Healing Project, a project that helps people deal with wayward entities and helps them cope with what is happening in their home or place of business. Because it's so close to Halloween, we figured we'd bring Amber back into the show to talk about some of the scary and spooky stories that she's dealt with in her investigations over the years. Sometimes the stories seem so unreal, but the experiences people are having leave Amber wondering what's going on and how to fix the issue. Amber Avalona, great to have you back on the air, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you stepping in on a moment's notice. You know, we signed you to that one-day contract, so that way you could get in here nice and quick to bail us out. You know, it's very rare that we get caught, but I mean, you can't do much with a family emergency like Mike had. And so, you know, I want to say thank you on behalf of all of our Spaced Out Radio audience, as well as myself, for helping us out to make sure that we had a show topic for tonight.
Yes, definitely. So you gave me a topic that I have a lot of experience with, so thank you. I appreciate that. And I know last time I was on, we were going to talk about something, and then we just kind of let the audience ask questions, and that was awesome. I think we got a lot of topics covered, but tonight we'll probably talk a lot about the ghosts. And well, sorry, was I going to let you introduce that? But
no, you go right ahead. Just take over. Do you want this? Do you want this end?
Sure.
The microphone.
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
Perfect.
I just thought I would kind of do the whole show for you. You know, hey, I'll just interview and also answer the questions. Yeah, so I thought we would, talk about some of my experiences as the paranormal healer, that kind of thing. So I'll kind of give it back to you right now, and we'll go from there.
Well, because our audience is ever-changing and ever-growing, I would love to reintroduce who you are. How did you get involved with the paranormal?
Yeah, that's always a great question, and we kind of touch on that a little bit most every time I'm guest on the show. But I have been a sensitive since I was very little. I am an empath. I'm a psychic in my own way. And basically what I say is I have one foot in this world and then one foot on the other side. So I'm always trying to balance that path because it is a very unique way of living, and I'm never fully here and I'm never fully there. And a lot of the dreams that I have are dreams that come true, or in my dreams I'm helping spirits to pass who have been recently killed in one way or another. That type of thing, or I'm doing house cleansings where spirits are coming to me that need help crossing over, or just having contact with spirits who don't even know, of course, that they are deceased. And so having that conversation and finding that empathy, or figuring out a way to address some of the issues that they have, as well as the people that they're living with, right? Because it's always a delicate topic, is do we put more emphasis on helping the family who is currently alive in the home physically, right, in the third dimension that we can see, touch, communicate with, or do we focus on helping the spirit and place more emphasis on that? And I take a very unique approach in that I think that everybody really needs to be heard, to be listened to. And then I kind of go to spirit and approach it from, well, what do the higher dimensions say as far as how this situation should be handled? And it's not always what anybody or everybody involved in that dilemma would necessarily want to happen. But it is for, in my opinion, from the information I'm receiving, for the highest good of everybody. And so I'm always happy when it does ultimately work out. So that's kind of a little bit of where I'm coming from.
Now, you mentioned that you have had these abilities to deal with the paranormal since childhood. At what point did you realize that this was something that was going to be a part of your life forever?
Wow, forever. Probably when I was 16 years old, and I did have to go back recently and verify what age I was because I couldn't remember exactly when it was, but I had a grandmother who I had not seen for years. I was kind of prevented from having any contact with her, and I was on vacation in Florida visiting an aunt and an uncle, and I woke up from a horrible nightmare, probably one of the worst dreams that I've ever had. And in that dream, one of my family members was burning alive, and they were screaming, and I was trying to help them and pull them out of this fire, and I couldn't. It was so devastating. Like, I could not do anything to help this person. And so I woke up from that, and the energy in the entire bedroom that I was in had shifted. It was very dark. I would almost call it demonic at that point, and I did see red eyes that were looking in at me from outside the window. I was completely scared. I just was basically frozen, didn't know what to do. But I also felt what would be considered probably an angelic presence inside of the room. And so it was almost like these polar opposites of entities that were watching me. And this very benevolent being was telling me to pray for my grandparents. And I was so scared, and I didn't really believe what I was hearing. And I finally said, no. I said, you need to ask somebody else to pray for my grandparents if this is really happening. And later on, I found out that that night my father was woken up and he started praying for his mother that night. He was in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time. But I finally got to sleep, and I woke up that next morning. And when I walked into the kitchen, my aunt said, "I need to talk to you." And I looked at her and I said, "Who died?" And she told me that my grandmother had passed away that night. And it was a very strange, very weird situation. I'm not going to go into it. But it was almost as if she was reaching out to me as she was passing over. And she was an atheist. You know, she didn't believe in God. She didn't believe in any of this. But something very horrible happened at the time of her passing. And whatever it was, I got drawn into that. And I always felt bad after that I didn't and couldn't help her in the way that I felt like she was crying out for me to help her. And so I think that was really a turning point for me, because it was years later that I started realizing where I was put into situations where, as people were at the moment of they were getting ready to die, or as they were dying, I was there. So I would help them to cross over. And so kind of a progression where I realized that I had this gift. And so it made sense that she had come to me when I was 16 years old. So that's kind of, I guess, looking back to where I probably knew that something significant was happening that night. I just didn't know what it was. And that, though, was the catalyst for really giving me the passion that I have now for helping folks who are crossed over and who are stuck or who are still having issues, because I felt what she was going through, and I would not ever want somebody to go through what she did.
That is amazing in regards to, you know, the whole rundown of what you have gone through. When you started realizing that this was serious business, that there was something to this, Amber, and that these experiences were real, they were happening to people that you love, how hard was it for you in order to accept that this was a phenomena that was actually happening?
Oh, it was hard. Well, because I grew up, you know, in a Christian school, where I went to a Christian school from the time I was in second grade till the time that I graduated from high school. And so I was very, what I would call, religious. I mean, of course, I was very, always extremely interested in angels and demons and all of the fringe aspect of religion, and that other people were not interested. I guess more conservative Christians were not interested in, I should say. So I was always really drawn to that. But this was, above and beyond any of that. And it was even in some circles, and in a lot of the circles that I was in, considered in and of itself demonic in a sense, like people who have this gift. And so it was difficult for me to accept it and to embrace it and to start using it as much as I do now. And so it took a really long time, and it took therapy. I actually went to traditional therapy to kind of work through a lot of the beliefs that were ingrained in me from the time I was a little girl. And I still have people who are very close to me who don't necessarily accept what I do and or believe in what I do, even though they have seen time and time again how I'll just say, well, this is going to happen, or tell them something and it'll transpire exactly the way that I'll say it, or weird things that I'll say will come about in their lives, and they still don't believe me. I don't know if that makes sense. There's like an apathy or a fear maybe around that because of what it would mean in the sense of having to give up, I think, an aspect of your religious belief system that keeps people safe in a sense. And there's nothing safe about what I do. It's very dangerous, and it's a lot of stuff where I'm always exploring. I'm always doing something different, or delving into a situation where I'm on a shamanic journey, or I'm walking into somebody's home and I might have some type of experience that might kind of resemble a little bit of it, but a lot of times it's completely new, certain aspects of it. And so I'm trying to feel my way through it, just as much as the next maybe psychic. And so I would assume that maybe that's part of why people kind of stay away from that, because it's, what do they say, the devil you know is a lot easier than the devil you don't know. So I can definitely understand where they're coming from.
So when you started deciding that you needed to investigate this more, did you notice with your abilities that the experiences people were having were coming quickly to you in order to pick up information, or was it something that you had to learn to decipher when you were going into a paranormal investigation? Because when you make that decision to come into a personal choice to investigate the paranormal, there is something that goes along with that. You know what I'm saying? There is a big decision to be made that you want to use those abilities in order to investigate and learn more about the paranormal, so to speak.
Right. I do both. A lot of it, because I believe in past lives, I think that I have a lot of information that comes natural to me because I've studied this, I believe, in prior lifetimes. So I do have that foundation that I've built upon. For instance, I was working with a gentleman who was in hospice, and this was one of the earlier instances of helping people to cross over. And I was taking care of him. He was, of course, elderly. He was very sick. And I was just a normal caretaker in hospice. I wasn't even really involved in any of this aspect of helping souls to cross at that point. But he was having a very rough time of it. And he was, in a lot of pain. And you could just tell he wasn't all there. It was almost as if he was in his head and kind of in this in-between state. And it was very painful for him and frustrating. And so I wanted to show him that there was another side and that it was very beautiful and that it would be okay for him to cross over whenever he was ready. So it was the first time that I had tried anything like this. And what I did was I was just sitting there with him, and I took his hand, and I just started kind of disconnecting his cords from this world and connecting them into the light. Some people might call it the light or heaven or whatever you want to term it. Is fine with me, but I was just allowing him to see what it was like for him on the other side, what he would find. And as I started doing that, I got really scared, and I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? I could really maybe mess something up or mess this guy up. So I stopped, and I started connecting the cords back to the earth. And this guy had, hadn't said a word to me the entire time. He looked straight at me and he said, "What are you doing?" And I just stopped. And I thought, is he talking to me? Because it seemed like he was. And it scared me. And I didn't exactly know what to do because I thought he was upset with me. And looking back later on, when I had a little bit of time to process it, I think he had started connecting to the other side. And at the moment that I had stopped and started connecting him back, he got really upset because it was so beautiful for him. He didn't want to come back. And so that was just an amazing, odd, unique experience for me, and the first experience for me in helping someone to cross over. And I was told later on, after I went home, to finish the process. So when I was at home, I did finish the process for him, where I helped to connect him to the other side. And then my guides told me, okay, it's going to be, they told me the number 64, I think. And I wasn't exactly sure what that meant. They said, it's not going to happen. He's not going to go right away, like this minute or anything like that. It'll be a little while. But I went back for my next shift, and his wife opened up the door, and she said, "They didn't tell you?" And I told her no, and she said, "Well, he already passed away." And I just kind of stopped, and I said, "Okay." And I just left. But the company had never called me to tell me that he had passed away in the day or two that I hadn't gone to see him. So that was a very different experience for me.
What do you think the paranormal actually is? There are a lot of people who believe that the paranormal is just an umbrella word dealing with ghosts, cryptids, everything of the sort. Or do you believe that the paranormal should be focused on the spirituality of the subject?
Well, for me, I focus a lot on the spirituality of the subject. And that's just because that's what I would term I guess I would term it gift. That sometimes I like to use that word, sometimes it doesn't feel right. But that's, I think that people always need to approach the paranormal from a higher state. I don't like the fear aspect of entering the paranormal and feeding all of these very negative things that we're investigating with fear and with drama and that type of thing, because from my experience and my research and in talking to a lot of other healers, especially and shamans, what that does is that hurts a lot more than it helps the field and the people in general. So that's kind of what I do, is I always try to tell somebody, okay, if you're gonna go after investigating ghosts, perfect. Do it. If you want to go into a haunted house, if you want to study vampires, if you want to study demonology, great, because we need more people who know about those topics and subjects. Just please empower yourself as you're doing it and balance yourself, because there always has to be that balance in order for us to make any progress. And by progress, I mean in order for us to understand anything and to get anywhere. I don't think that we're going to fully understand the topic if we try to be too lovey-dovey and too light. And then on the opposite end, if we try to be too dark and negative and fear-mongering. So does that maybe address your question, or is that kind of what you're asking?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking, in regards to what you think in regards to it, because there's so many people debating right now what the paranormal is, what it's about, what it should be about. If you were to direct what you think the paranormal should be, what would you describe it as?
The paranormal, wow. I would say that it is just, it is all of the aspects of our normal lives that are currently beyond our full comprehension. And so to me, the paranormal it's not fake. It's not something that's far-fetched. It's not something that is unbelievable. It's just something that is, it's so vast and broad that it's probably difficult it won't be labeled. It refuses to be put in a tiny little box. Just like all of the people, in my opinion, who are fascinated with the paranormal, we refuse to be put in that same little box because we like variety. We understand that as human beings and as souls and spirits, that there is so much more to us than what somebody could label us as Democrat or Republican, male, female, married, single, anything that's that minute. And so the paranormal is anything that, in a sense also, maybe anything that you're willing to explore that is going to open yourself up more to your own sense of superiority. And I hate, some people may take that wrong, but we're so much greater, I think, than maybe some people think we are. Like, we have so much more capabilities and we can accomplish so much more. So maybe our own power, maybe that might be a better word. So it opens you up to your own power and your own authenticity and who you are as a multi-layered, I don't know. That's a really good question. And I could probably go on and on about it and never come up with a very profound answer, because it's, in some words, beyond, maybe beyond human comprehension, because we might have to be out of this human form before we can totally understand it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you got started in the paranormal then, Amber, did you expect it to be as intense with the investigations as some of them can be? I think when I got started, I thought I would ease myself into it and try and learn as I go, kind of learn on the fly. But there are so many times where I've been caught off guard to the intensity of what can happen in a haunted place that I don't think I was personally ready for it. It's different when you're going with people who are fully investigatory, where they've done this for a long time. They have been someone who has maybe been investigating a number of years, and yet at this point, when I started, I kind of had to throw myself into the mix. Did you find that as well?
Yes, I definitely threw myself into it, and I also love to research. So I have a complete library of books, and it's always growing. I'm always reading. And also reading about mythology, reading about other cultures, about their spirits, about their idea of ghosts, because I don't think that, I mean, it's kind of weird to me that in American culture, you'll have an investigative team go into a home and they'll say, oh, yeah, well, it's this and this and this. It's this ghost or it's this. And it's all American, you know, and that just doesn't make any sense to me, because how could everything you find be something that is like very easily packaged into an American investigative viewpoint? That just, in my experience, has not happened. I find things that are from all over the world as a psychic. And there are times where I'll run into something and I will tell them, this is what I'm seeing. I have no freaking idea what this is. And I will have to get back to you after I do some research, because this is all I can tell you right now is describe what I'm seeing. And I have no further information. And it's kind of like when we were talking about Bigfoot the last time that I was on the show, and you talked about Bigfoot a little bit, and I said I really didn't know that much about Bigfoot, but I did a little bit of investigation after the show, and one of the things that I was asking some of the guides in the other realms, and some of the ideas that were being put forth to me that I've never heard before from anybody else, so you might be able to give me a little insight if you've heard this, is that Bigfoot might be in a parallel universe, which of course we did discuss, I know, among ourselves at least, but also might be some aspect of the person who sees the Bigfoot, or at least some aspect in a parallel universe of one of the people who sees the Bigfoot, which is why that Bigfoot is making that appearance to that person, kind of opening that person up to a larger understanding of who they are in relation to everything else that's going on. Is that anything that you've ever run across? Because I'd never heard that before.
I'm so new to this that, I mean, there's so much that I haven't run across just yet. So it wouldn't surprise me if I haven't, you know. I'm more still taking it all in, like when something happens on my end on a paranormal investigation, because I'm doing the tours at our local museum once a month, and when we get something there, I get so giddy and excited about it that I really don't, worry about doing the recording or the official investigation of what is supposed to be going on, so it's so much different. I mean, as for official investigations, it's something that I really haven't done on a serious note, except maybe once or twice, so it is new to me, but trying to be a non-paranormal guy, take people through a paranormal investigation, so to speak, it's very difficult for me at times to figure out what I'm actually supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, well, the great thing about it is we're learning as well. And, one of the other things that was really interesting that I hadn't heard really anybody else say was the rocks. There's something about them stacking up rocks that I think has to do with them being able to travel from one place to another. And I was someone just told to correct me on saying multiverse rather than parallel universe. So if people prefer multiverse, I'm using that term as well for some of our listeners. But so that's, it's very interesting, all of this. And some of the great stuff, though, for you is that when you're doing these, when you yourself, Dave, are exploring and learning, you can bring that information back then to your radio show and to your listeners and share that with everybody else. So you can kind of maybe approach the paranormal from two different aspects. And I don't know how many people who have the paranormal radio shows and have it on the scale that you have it actually do a lot of investigating. You would probably know more than I do, but I don't keep up with that. But I know that it is important.
It is important. And, you know, the one thing that I have learned so quickly in this field, and maybe you have as well, is just the minute you think you're starting to grasp onto something, it changes right away. It's never the same. It always seems to be changing, even if you investigate the exact same location over and over and over again. It's just never the same. And I think one of the frustrations I have with paranormal investigation is there really is no continuity, is there?
No. It's definitely, it does change a lot. And so what can be the truth or reality, I have found in my cases, 1 year or even sometimes 1 month can be completely different the next year and outdated, especially when I'm dealing with the darker entities, because in my opinion, they change and they shift how they affect people. Because if you figure out how to fix a situation for somebody, right, how to protect them, well, it boggles my mind. It blows my mind how some healers and investigators use the same protective or exorcism techniques over and over and over again, thinking that they are going to work every single time. And when they don't, they're kind of like, I wonder why. But they never do any research. They never, keep up to date on what's really happening. And you got to realize that you're kind of dealing with a very intelligent being. You're not just throwing a dart at a board and hoping to hit the bullseye every time. You're dealing with an opponent, and your opponent is going to change its strategy. It's not going to hit you the same way every single time, and you're going to have to learn new techniques. You're going to have to shift your approach, and that's what I found, at least. And the people that I work with, I know that they have found the same thing, and that's why I really appreciate and respect people like shamans who go in and can go into the different realms and can do their work. If they travel through their spirit realm and they encounter the situation as it is in that moment, rather than not being able to see anything on the spirit side and just kind of guessing that what they're throwing at something is going to work. So this is something to really keep in mind, is that we're always having to learn and adjust and shift. And if you don't like change, you shouldn't be in the field of the paranormal.
It is a decision that a lot of people have to make, and I think you bring up something very good there. How do people decide whether or not they should be in the paranormal, especially if they have a strong curiosity about the subject?
Well, I should probably clarify that by saying professionally in the field of the paranormal, where you're putting yourself out there as being somebody who wants to help others. You're advertising yourself as maybe an expert in one area or another. You have a website on the internet that says that you're an investigative team, that type of thing. You say you're an exorcist or a demonologist or a healer. Well, you really got to know your stuff then. Now, if you just kind of want to dabble in the paranormal for your own curiosity, then, in my opinion, do whatever you want. And if you're not hurting anybody or affecting anybody else, then who am I to tell you what you should or shouldn't do? But if what you do definitely does affect other people, and especially other people who are in fear or are hurting or have a paranormal problem that they're coming to you for help with, you have to be able to say sometimes that being a professional means that you're willing to learn alongside everybody else. And there are people who have, so I guess it means checking your ego at the door, which can be hard for us. I mean, we're always learning, right, how to kind of work with our ego issues. But if you really have ego issues and it's all about you, or you always have to be right, paranormal's not the place for you.
In the next hour, we're going to get into a lot of the stories that you have experienced in your paranormal investigations, and some of them good, some of them bad, some of them that are probably unexplainable. Do you think, as I say the word unexplainable, that there are unexplainable examples of what is happening in the paranormal, or do you think there's an answer to everything?
There's probably an answer to everything. My view is that if it's happening, there has to be an answer for it. Now, I may not know the answer. I may not ever know the answer or ever be able to give the answer to somebody, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an answer. It just means that I may not be the person to give it to you. I might be able to tell you this is what I'm seeing that's happening, and it may always be a mystery to me. And I've had cases where that has happened, and it doesn't sit well with me, but I have to accept it working in this field.
I understand that, but do you think, though, that with the fact that there are so many unanswered questions that people have, and some people are going an absolute lifetime trying to answer one simple question in this field, do you think there are maybe questions then that we are not supposed to know the answers to because it's not spiritually divine to do so?
Probably. I would say maybe at this time and place, maybe in our human development or in our Earth's, karmic history, it may not be the time and place for us to know something. So, now, if somebody really has a passion for a particular topic and they are just, they cannot let go of an issue, and they spend their entire lives focused on it and seeking the answer to that, their research, even though they may not find the answer, might be the foundation that somebody 200 or 300 years from now uses to build upon to find that answer. So if they really feel that they need to pursue it, even if everybody else is telling them they're crazy, I would tell them to pursue it.
Pursuing is one thing, but there is still the idea that for a lot of rookie investigators or people who just have mild curiosity, that they don't know what they're doing, they don't know how to protect themselves, and it could be more dangerous than what it actually believes. And I think, the downside to a lot of these television programs is they make it look easy. They make it look like nothing can attach to you or nothing can get you going or get to you. Yet we all know that there is a real danger to this entire process that we call paranormal investigation. And do you think enough people take that danger into consideration?
Oh, well, I completely agree with you in that respect. no, I don't think that most people take it into consideration as much as it needs to be. And maybe that's part of maybe that is part of the danger of it, in the sense that I believe that there are actually dark entities out there that could have certain people's minds. And I have talked to certain investigators who, after maybe a year of investigating, after they've done a certain case, they're not the same people. And something is seriously mentally wrong with them when some people get to a certain point. So, yeah, it can be really dangerous. And they can get attachments. They can get sometimes oppressed or possessed, or any number of things can happen. But I can tell somebody over and over and over again to protect themselves or to be safe, and it can a lot of times be like talking to a brick wall, because they want that adrenaline rush. They think it's fun. And when somebody is seeking the thrill of it or the excitement, the protection is just going to take away from that. And so anything that I tell them to do to be safe spiritually is kind of antithetical to their goal for being in the field in the first place.
How would you define if somebody came up to you and said, look, I want to do this right. I want to protect myself. I want to make sure that nothing comes around me while I'm doing my investigation, or before or afterwards. I don't want to be attacked. I don't want anything malevolent clinging on to me. How do you tell people to protect themselves?
Well, I know we have to go to commercial in a minute, but first of all, I would say stop investigating right now and take about 3 to 4 months and actually focus on protection techniques and learning how to protect yourself. And I would be completely serious about that, because it is far too difficult to try to learn how to protect yourself while you are investigating. And I know that from experience, and there have been times where I have had to, for months at a time, stop doing anything just so that I can heal from something, just so that I can get better, just so that I can try to figure out what it was that happened to me during an investigation. And I would prefer that other people wouldn't have to go through some of the things that I went through, because I know that there are people who wouldn't survive some of the stuff that I went through. And I would like for people to keep living, and I would like for them to enjoy investigating and to help other people. So I would say learn how to strengthen your aura, learn how to watch these investigative shows online, and start practicing how to detach from the drama, and how to put up energetic shields between yourself and the fear and the negativity that's happening during those moments where those investigators and or those entities are trying to elicit some type of very negative, fear-based or angry response, so that you can then transfer that to your own investigative situation, and so that you can stand in your power much more easily when you're walking into a haunted location, and so that you are not attacked as much, and so that you're able to help people not freak out, not take something home, you're able to correctly assess the situation. Because I even saw on Ghost Adventures recently where there was an investigator who was not with the Ghost Adventures team, but she was showing them around, and there was a sound that happened, and she told the Ghost Adventures team, this is what's going on. And she looked very scared. She was almost shaking during the entire walkthrough. And I immediately said to myself when she started, quote, feeling into the situation, I'm like, no, she's wrong. She doesn't know what she's talking about. That's not what's going on. And they proved later on that she didn't know what she was talking about. That wasn't what was happening. But you don't want to be telling your clients incorrect information, especially in the middle of an investigation like that, because she was telling them something that could have been really bad for somebody if they were living in that home, if they weren't the Ghost Adventures team. And so you want to make sure that you are approaching this from the standpoint of you're trying to be as ethical, as mature, as grounded, as centered as possible.
Amber, I'm going to get you to hold on here because we are going to hop out for our first break of the night. Amber Avalona is our guest on Spaced Out Radio from the Paranormal Healing Project. We promised you some scary stories coming up, and we're going to get to your questions and Amber's stories that she has to tell from investigations right after this. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Amber's going the distance with us tonight. Everything paranormal on the line. And we will continue it right after this break. We'll be right back with more SOR.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
Want a place to share your experiences without feeling judged? We have the place for you. If you've experienced sightings or contact with ETs, ghosts, cryptids, or UFOs, and you'd like someone to confidentially look into the matter, just fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our goal is to help you get the answers you need to the experiences you've had with our professional team of researchers. Your information stays 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines report. Fill out your experience today only at spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Jamie Sexton is back with Rebel Planet News. We're going to talk about the events in his hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada, and what happened there just a couple of weeks ago with the tragedy at the Mandalay Bay. It's going to be a great show starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Great to have you with us as well. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And Bill, after everything I do for you, I thought you'd be a little bit more kind to me tonight. Brobding, I don't even know. Hold on, where is it here? I can't even pronounce it. It's got me a little messed up right now. Brobdingnangian? Brobdingnangian is your password? Or is it Brobdingnandian? I don't know. It's one of those, but Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us in the SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook if you want to connect live with us and chat live during the show. We're also on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. You can listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, tune us in on TuneIn, download this show, and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. You can read The Encounter online or watch some great video viewing from UFO Seekers and Contact TV. Everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we have Amber Avalona with us. She is with the Paranormal Healing Project out of New Mexico. Amber, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
I want to get to some questions from our audience, if you don't mind.
Oh, definitely.
All right, let's start with BTOs here. And he is asking, who are your guides? Who do you consider spirit?
Good question. Well, I actually don't publicize who my guides are. And the reason that I don't is because with the work that I do, because I deal with such dark cases and dark entities, I have had a lot of black magic done against me. And I have to be kind of careful about some of the spiritual stuff that I do, and more regarding the people and the entities that I work with. So I'm pretty open about myself. But as far as who I work with, I've learned through, unfortunately, trial and error, that there are people out there who, I guess, have nothing better to do than to try to hurt others. And and unfortunately, every time I come on this show, I do get attacked. So I'm going to kind of just leave it at that and say that I don't publicize it, but I do have a number of guides, and you can, in general, I'll say that guides can be anyone from your ancestors. So they can be your ancestors who are in your actual bloodline, or your ancestors from, if you believe in prior lifetimes, they can be ancestors from your prior lifetimes. You can also have guides who are like gods or goddesses, or angels, so archangels. A lot of people have guides who are like Jesus or Mother Mary or the Catholic saints. So those are just kind of some of those, as well as animal guides. Animal guides are definitely guides that, in my opinion, most everybody has as well. So that's just kind of a general that I hope that maybe helps to answer a little bit of the question for people who are interested in that topic without going into direct detail.
Well, let's go into his next few questions here, because he asked like 12 questions in one paragraph here. Thanks, BTO.
All right.
It's fantastic. I'm just giving them a hard time. Are you still indoctrinated in religion?
No. It's kind of funny because I am so far outside of any one religion that it's not even funny to most people that know me or that knew me when I was growing up. But I do study a lot of different religions, so I myself feel that there's a lot of beauty in different religions. So I will take what I view are the best parts of it, and I create my own spirituality. But I'm very independent, and I do kind of follow my own path in spirituality as well as in life in general. And I would encourage everybody else to really trust themselves as well, and to, follow your heart, follow your soul, whatever that's leading you to do.
Follow-up question again, are you more into the reintegration process, and what do you know about the universe and beyond?
Am I more into the reintegration process? I don't really know what that means. Is he talking about the reintegration of Earth? Is that what?
I have no idea. Let's see. The problem with the chat rooms is that we have, a limited amount of space for.
I know, right?
Let's just move on. What do you know about the universe and beyond? And do you think there is a difference between the parallel universes and the multiverse?
In my opinion, I don't believe there's a difference. To me, from the studies that I've done, it's basically just a preference in terminology. So I think that they're one and the same.
Let's get to Sunny's question, who is asking, do you believe it's safe to begin dabbling in the paranormal just to learn protection techniques, or will that energy still attract negative entities?
Okay. So can you repeat that question just one more time? I got
Absolutely.
most of it, but
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sunny is wondering, if you begin dabbling in the paranormal just to learn protection techniques, will it still attract negative energies?
Really good question, too. It could. I mean, honestly, I'm going to be pretty blunt here, is that anything that you dabble in the paranormal has the potential for attracting negative entities or energies or thought forms. But I have found in my experience, and of course these are all my opinions, but I have found that that's true in life in general. So anything that you do that is not considered paranormal has the potential to attract negative entities or energies. So I would say that it's better to try to learn protection techniques than to just go about life completely open to anything or everything that's out there, because you do have parasitic beings and entities that will take advantage of that, just like you have people who will take advantage of you if you let them. So you want to try to learn those techniques, and also be aware that sometimes there are negative people masquerading as teachers and as light workers who will try to teach you techniques that are not good for you under the guise of it being protective. So if you don't feel good about something, or if it makes you ill, if it makes you sick, if you find that your energy is being depleted, then you've probably run into an energetic vampire, and you want to get away from them as well as their, quote, protection techniques as quick as possible.
Let's get to another question here. Craig is asking, how do you know if you have an attachment? That's a real important question, actually.
Yeah, definitely. You'll notice that your thinking is kind of fuzzy. You just don't feel right sometimes. Other people might mention stuff, and you might not even know it. So let's say that your view of reality starts to differ from the people in your sphere, like your close sphere. They start to say something's different about you. And you're thinking, oh, no, I'm fine, whatever, it's your problem. But enough people say that about you, you want to take notice of that, because that's usually a really good indication that you have an attachment and or some other very serious negative problem. There's also, you can get, again, very sick, very ill. You can sleep a lot. If you do sleep, you just feel like you don't ever wake up or have enough energy. Of course, all of these things eventually will affect your physical body, because if something attaches to you, whether if it attaches to your etheric body, your mental body, your emotional body, your aura, it's always going to eventually head down and hit your physical body. So you're going to have those physical implications, whether it's your thyroid that's out of balance, your heart, that kind of thing. So you want to just also, you'll notice that your house may not feel right. Maybe your house is cold. A lot of people have mentioned that kind of thing, where you just can't seem to get warm, where you can't seem to get ahead, you have a run of bad luck, your animals start acting weird, which might mean that you have an attachment because they are acting weird around you. Those are just some of the issues that you might run into.
Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Robin in the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook, who is asking, I'm psychic myself. Have you been tricked before? That is something that is by something that is actually negative showing itself as something positive.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? That's a really good question. I'm going to answer that in just a minute, but I was told to say this as well for the attachments, is that you'll find yourself also doing things that you didn't do before. Just kind of out of the blue, for some reason, you have an addiction or a craving for something that is bad for you that you never would have entertained before, whether it's gambling or whether it's pornography or whether it's drinking or just kind of doing like weird things that you didn't do before and you can't seem to shake now. So that's another one. And that could also mean that you have a deceased spirit that's attached to you. So some people would call them ghosts. Others would call them discarnates, those types of things. So, but back to the other question about being psychic and how she's been, can you just repeat that question one more time?
How do you tell between the fact that if you're psychic, that you're actually having something positive and not something negative showing itself as positive?
Yeah, that's a good question because, I did have a case where it was a very crazy case where it must have been an extremely powerful demonic entity because I had never run into this before, but it presented itself to me as one of my spirit guides. And for the first couple of seconds, it had the exact same signature as my spirit guide, looked exactly like my spirit guide. And but then right after that, I was like, no, wait a minute. And then it revealed itself to be this extremely huge demonic entity. I don't know. It was probably as tall as it was taller than a house. one-story buildings. It was huge. And so there are things that can trick you, and you basically just want to be careful about that. What I always do is, because I feel energy, I always go beyond what I initially see and or even feel. So I'll feel into it longer than is maybe even necessary, just to make sure that it's correct and it's true. And like in that situation I just was telling you about, the reason I was able to pick up on it was because I felt into it longer than it tried to portray itself as something that was positive. And you can also call upon your own higher self. You can call upon your, you can protect yourself in whatever way you protect yourself before you engage with any other source, whether it's an investigation or whether it's a pendulum, whether it's a Ouija board, whether it's a spirit session. Even when you're talking to your own spirit guides, you always want to protect yourself first to make sure that they're not being manipulated one way or another. And always just pray as much as possible. You can light incense. Certain incense will repel all forms of negativity. Rosemary is excellent for cleansing your home, as well as cloves. So you can get essential oils, and you can put those in an essential oil diffuser, the rosemary and the cloves, and you can have that going in your home. You can also come up with essential oil blends that help to create a positive atmosphere so that only positive spirits are drawn to you. Magnolia is a really good scent for drawing positive spirits. So you can do things to shift the energy of your environment, because when you're dealing with something else, what does it do, right? It's not inside of you, hopefully. It's in your room, or it's in a room, and so you shift the energy of that space so that it's much less probable for that entity to hold on to any type of negative vibration or any deceit or anything like that. So
we're going to get to we're going to get to one more question here, and then I want to start getting into some spooky stories here. Ron is asking, and Ron we call the Ukrainian watermelon around these parts. He is
why?
Well, he's from Saskatchewan, and they're really hardcore Canadian Football League fans there, and it could be like -10 outside, and they'll be wearing watermelons on their head to support their team. You know, they're just weird. They're weird people, and considering it's so flat, if you look north, you might see Ron waving at you right now. So. So we're going to get to his question right now. He says, what would happen if we did find the answers that we aren't supposed to? How do you think that would affect humanity?
Another really good question. I think it would probably, like everything, potentially cause one of two things: either a great divide, where once again you have a situation where there is some type of groundbreaking revelation. You have a group of people who knew already, right, that in some form or another that it was already true, and we're just waiting for the scientific data to support it in one form or another. And then you have the people who, for whatever reason, cannot or don't want to believe it, and who have to kind of fragment their own minds and refuse to believe it because it goes against something else that they hold even more important in their own belief system. So if it threatens maybe a part of their religion that they hold very dear, or some other type of, some other mentality, they're not going to accept it, no matter how much data is out there, right? And it will probably take a few generations for it to integrate into society as acceptable. But then maybe there could be another, hopefully more positive situation where people kind of come together and it causes this amazing sense of unity, and it helps people to kind of expand themselves. They see it as something positive. They tap into it, and they use it as inspiration in their own lives to really expand their view of maybe their own place in the world, of their own place in, I don't even know what you would call it, maybe in this world after they die as well, and that type of thing. And it's just it's a very beautiful, transition and discovery that helps people. So it can be one or two. And it depends also on how it affects the people in power. Because if it's going to threaten the people in power, well, you kind of know what's going to happen.
Let's get to some of your stories here before we get into more audience questions, because otherwise, literally, we will be here all night. And I do want to get into some of your stories that you have regarding the paranormal. And
yeah.
Have you ever had one of those situations where you have literally been really caught off guard by the aggressiveness of an entity?
Yeah, definitely. But usually though, when an entity is that aggressive, it's because they have been sent by someone or something higher than themselves. So if I'm encountering an entity that is extremely powerful and it's really knocking me down, there's, for instance, there was a case that I was working on in Edgewood, and I think I may have mentioned this before, but it was a long time ago. And I was working on this case. It was so crazy. And one night I was at home, and I was doing the dishes. And as I was doing the dishes, I had this fluttering that kind of, my robe kind of fluttered behind me, and I felt something start choking, like hands go around my neck and start choking me. And that was one of the worst feelings that I've ever had, of the physical feeling of not being able to breathe, and you have this, I knew what it was too, because I could see her. I couldn't see her with my own eyes, but I can see into the spirit realm. So I could see her, and she was like a witch. And she had come to attack me from this crazy home that I was working on. And I just had to stay calm, because I knew that if I freaked out, I would not be able to look into it, because I was by myself. I mean, there was nobody that I could call on, and there was nothing that I could do. And so I just had to stay really calm. I had to try to figure out, okay, what do I do in this situation? My throat was closing up. It was hard for me to breathe all through that next day through the afternoon. So in trying to figure out what to do, I tried a few different things, and finally one of the things that helped was I started playing some gospel music, like Christmas, like gospel. Can't remember exactly what it was, but over and over and over again for 2 hours straight, the same song. And it was really high pitched. And I guess maybe there was something about that tone that was potentially distressing. And that kind of relieved it a bit and got it to the point where I was able to do some other spiritual work on myself. And but I still dealt with probably some of the effects for that for a few months afterward. I don't think I completely got rid of whatever happened for a while. So, yeah, I mean, you can definitely run into some crazy things.
That is eerie. That is eerie. Have you had a situation, or could you take us through a situation where you got a call, say, from a family where a ghost or spirit was starting to create like poltergeist type activity?
Yeah, I did have a family that was having poltergeist activity, and they would have stuff that would move, they would have stuff that would disappear in their home. And they would also have stuff in the glasses in their kitchen would kind of fall off the shelf, the countertop. And the mother at first, before she called me, she's like, okay, well, it happened once, and I kind of thought, all right, well, maybe it was just near the edge or something, and it just fell. Well, the second time it happened, she looked into it and she's like, okay, well, that is way too eerie because it was, I think, 2 days in a row that happened, on top of kind of some other things going on. So when she called me, when we looked into it, I'm trying to remember exactly what that one was. And unfortunately, I'd have to look back at my notes, because this was years ago, but I think that either that one was the spirit of a little boy at that time that we had to cross over, or it was, there was another investigator that had come to their house that I guess apparently had created an elemental and placed it in their home to watch the family, I guess apparently as a protective thing, but it got out of hand. I guess he had done some magic and hadn't told them. And so we had to call this guy and have him basically shift whatever he had done, dismantle it or something, because he had created something that he couldn't, I guess it's some type of magic that you do. I think it's chaos magic. And he just, unfortunately didn't know what he was doing. But yeah, so stuff like that can happen. And so that kind of brings it into the whole thing of some of these paranormal cases that I run across, instead of it being a ghost, as some paranormal teams say that it is, it can be magic, and it can be entities or some type of being that another living person has either created and or has kind of stolen their life force and has directed toward the home and the family that's being affected. So really have to deal with it on two levels. You have to deal with the curse or the spell that has been cast against the family, as well as the poltergeist or the paranormal activity that they're dealing with. And so I do recommend that investigators look into that aspect of it, because it's something that I rarely hear people talk about, but it happens a lot more than people think of. And so it's something you really want to be careful about, because it can cause a lot of damage, especially if you have somebody who places a curse on a family and you don't deal with the object or something correctly. And that's why they continue to have issues, because you haven't addressed that curse.
Before we get to another story, let's get to another couple questions from our audience. Adam is asking, can you get attacked or attached to even if you're not trying to do anything with the paranormal? And if so, how do you protect yourself?
Yes, unfortunately, you can. And part of that can go back to what I was just discussing, which is the magic, whether somebody is cursing you, crossing you, voodoo, spells. I mean, it can be any number of things. Say you're working with somebody. Your coworker wants your position. They're after your job. They start doing some type of voodoo work on you to try to get your position. So you then become a, quote, victim of the paranormal without ever even having an interest in it. And sometimes people don't even believe in it, and they're still suffering from the effects of some of these things. And I know a lot of us may have heard, well, if you don't believe in it, you don't give it any power, it can't hurt you. All I can say is, if you want to believe that way, I can't change your mind. I have not found that to be true. I think it's a really dangerous way to believe, but we all, of course, have free will. But yeah, so if you say you break up with somebody, I mean, this is another thing that is rampant. I actually just dealt with a guy that was absolutely obsessed with me, and 3 months of dealing with this, and was doing all sorts of magic and spells against me, and leaving stuff on my property and under my bedroom window. And, so you can be a victim that way. And it really has a way of finding people in the oddest situations.
This moves on to Craig's question then, where he says, Amber, are there then therefore any positive attachments that happen?
Yes. That's a great question as well. I love that everybody is so insightful. Yes. I did have a family who had a little boy who had passed away a few days after he was born. And his spirit stayed with the family. Now, when I was called in to work on the case, he was the first thing that I saw in the home. So he was the first one that I dealt with, and I actually did a shamanic journey before I even went to the house. And so I did encounter him, and I did healing work on him myself, and then some beautiful healers in a higher realm did some amazing healing work on him. And so he was kind of, I guess, the stuff maybe in our realm that was affecting him as a ghost, as a spirit, was removed from him, and he was allowed to stay with the family, and he in turn became a spirit guide for the little girl. in the family who at that time was about 1.5 years old and has stayed with her as her protector, as her older brother and as her spirit guide for years. And from what I understand, Dave, you did a reading on it actually when we were talking one time alone, and has just loves her very much and helps her through this life because she is what I would term a rainbow crystalline child. So it can be kind of difficult for those children right now. And so he's helping to protect her by being in her energy field and deflecting some of that negativity that maybe other spirits who would try to attach to her who are not so positive. So yeah, you can definitely have positive attachments in the forms of that type of thing.
We'll get to one more question before we go back into story time with Amber, and this one comes from Craig again, who is asking, do you believe then it's completely within our control and our power to heal the energy leak that attracts these parasite spirits in the first place?
One part of me wants to say yes, that it is completely within our control. And I think that I would say, like in a perfect world, and if we were fully in our power, that it would be completely within our control. But then maybe the practical side of me, or the side of me that has dealt with this and had a number of experiences myself and with other people, would say that it's not necessarily in that moment completely within our control, because we are already vulnerable at that point, because we have those energy leaks and because we are depleted. And it's almost like if we're being fired at, we kind of need somebody to rush in and sometimes help to save us, right? So we need people who are stronger in that moment, and people who are maybe better prepared to protect us, to step in and advocate for us. So I would say that we do need a lot of help to get more powerful and to heal ourselves. And that's in the form of whether it's going to a Reiki practitioner, whether it's learning from a mentor, whether it's reading books, right, by people who have written these things on how to protect ourselves, or whether it's going to a doctor, a naturopath, or even just a regular doctor to get the medication we need to complement the spiritual work we're doing, or whether it's working, praying, or doing meditations, visualizations, tapping, doing positive magic, anything like that. So I think we need help, and that's okay. I've always said that the most powerful people are the ones who ask for help.
Thank you for answering those questions. We'll get to more questions as well later on in the show from our audience. Do you like dealing with, I shouldn't ask you if you like dealing with it, but there always comes a point where children get scared and children are involved. And I think that's probably one of the most difficult cases any paranormal investigator has to go through, is when spiritually speaking, the ghosts are attaching themselves or harassing children in a household. Would you share a story with us where you've had to encounter that type of situation?
Yeah, I actually just had one within the last couple of weeks where I had a local woman who contacted me, and her son, who is a sensitive, I think he's probably at least part indigo. He may be indigo crystalline for people who are into that aspect of it, but he's very gifted. And he was telling her that he was really scared at night, and he was seeing stuff. And so there was one night that he's 6 years old. I think he's really young. So there was one night where he went into the bedroom with them, and he slept with them because he was so scared. So she texted me the next day and said, "Hey, can you just please look into the situation in his room? Let me know what you see and get back to me." And I said, "Of course, I'll definitely do that." So I looked into his room, and one of the things that I saw was something I had never encountered before, and it was a dinosaur standing right by his bed, looking at his bed, and it was all bone. Like, there was no flesh on it, but it was just like all bone. It looked kind of like a T-Rex. I mean, not very good with dinosaurs, but it looked like kind of that shape, and but smaller, of course. And so I told her, I had to text her the next day and say, okay, or afterward, and say, okay, so this is what I saw, and never had I heard any other psychic say that they had seen anything like that. And so I texted her, and the response I got back, and of course I removed it from his room, and I closed up a portal that had been opened from his room into a different dimension. And and some other stuff. And so when I texted her, that was one of the things I said was, so I also saw this dinosaur. And she texted back, she's like, "Oh my God, he has been telling me that he's seeing skeleton men and skeleton and dinosaurs in his room." And she said, I didn't believe him. Just kind of blew it off, and as like it being an overactive imagination or something. And I said, well, I don't think it's his imagination, because that's exactly what I saw. And I couldn't tell her what it was, right? All I can do is say, again, that's a part of the mystery, is say, this is what I saw, this is what I encountered, this is what I removed. And sometimes we just have to leave it at that. But yeah, so children can be very scared. I mean, if I was a child and I saw something like that next to my bed, like he did, I can understand why he's so scared. And so that's why I think it's really important that as adults and as parents, we talk to our children, even at younger ages, and believe them, first of all, when they tell us about these things, and let them know that it's okay for them to have a conversation with us, and just be very genuine in our responses, and very supportive, and do what we can to help make their living situation, their sleeping environment, as protected and safe and comfortable as possible. So I did give them some suggestions for things to do for the room also for him, so that hopefully he would be able to sleep better, and it would help to energetically seal his room when he was there at night. But yeah, so that's just kind of one example.
When it comes with children dealing with it, a lot of parents do not seem to accept the fact that their children are actually having some sort of paranormal experience. How do you get through to the parents that the children are actually dealing with some sort of entity?
I think it must be hard for parents to come to the realization that their children are a separate entity from themselves. And there must be some part of parents that still thinks, like, this little person came from me, therefore it's an extension of myself. And I see a lot of parents treating children as just that, as an extension of themselves. So, like, you can't have any experiences that I don't have, and I won't accept it. Your experience in life has to mesh exactly with mine, or else it's not valid, that type of thing. And then sometimes it's just we are under the impression that children have active imaginations, which of course they do, right? That's the beautiful part about being a child. But then also we forget that part of that imagination, actually imagination and magic, they are almost exactly the same. So the part of the brain that imagines things is the very part of the brain that creates, like, and so magic and that type of thing. And so our world is an extension of what was once our imagination. And so we have to remember that what children are maybe seeing might be reality. It's just not reality in the sense that the adult is able to process it or visually tap into it at that moment. And just if you feel like you need to take your child to a therapist to help them work through some of the trauma of these experiences, and that therapist is very open to the idea of the child being gifted, I think that's fine. But also the parent needs to study up on what it means for this child to be psychic. There are different types of psychic abilities. So part of that parent's responsibility is to study up on their own children, right? And to learn what it means to be the best parent that they can possibly be for that child, and how to best love that child through that child's life, right? And help them grow into the best person that they can possibly be. It's a beautiful responsibility that they've been given. And I would really like to see more of it. And so, and to support each other and to start talking, maybe if a parent is questioning whether these things are happening to their own children, talk to somebody who has experience in the paranormal field with this kind of stuff. Just, bounce your stories off of them and get their opinion, because they've had maybe more experience than you have and can potentially provide some insight that you don't have going through this for the first time, because it can be a little scary for everybody.
Let's get to another question here from BTO, and we only got about 4 minutes before we got to go to break here, Amber. This hour's flown right by. He is asking, so Amber, do you feel that we are only based within this universe and not beyond? Are people supposed to just recycle, reincarnate over again? Or are there beings who exist beyond this universe?
I don't, I think there are beings who exist beyond this universe. That's my experience and my opinion, based on my personal experience. I do believe that there are people who have reincarnated on this particular earth, and there are some people who have done it a lot. There are some people who have done it quite a few times, but then have gone to other universes, other solar systems, have experienced a number of different bodies, and that's just such an amazing topic in and of itself. But then there are also people who are coming here for the very first time to Earth, and so they don't have any, they kind of feel really out of place in human society. They don't have anything to really base this existence upon. And so to them, kind of the idea of reincarnation is very alien, just because they themselves are very alien in their soul's origins, because they were always somewhere else before this earth.
I think we got time to sneak in one more question here, and this one comes from Ron, and we got about 90 seconds. He is asking, okay, what do you, Amber, do with wandering souls? How do you come across them over, or how do you cross them over?
Okay, so I'll try to say that really fast. Sometimes I try to communicate with them, and so if they have a particular issue that's keeping them here, if we do have a conversation, I will try to help them work through some of that trauma or the emotional pain that's keeping them here, and we will heal that before I cross them over, so that they can go into the light in a happier state of being and mind. Sometimes people or souls don't want to be crossed over at all, and they are definitely hurting people here. In those cases, it's more of a forced crossover, and some people don't agree with that, but they also don't have the in my opinion, the understanding of how those souls are negatively harming so many people in their space because they become parasitic. They
I'm going to get you to hold on, Amber, because we're going to pick it up right there. How about that? I think that's fair as we head out for our second and final break of the night. We're taking your questions. We're learning Amber's stories from Paranormal, the good, the bad, and the scary. Tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Amber Avalona. She is part of the Paranormal Healing Project based out of New Mexico in the United States. She's going the distance tonight. We absolutely love her for filling in for Mike Morin and Ghosts of the Great White North, who had a family emergency and couldn't attend tonight. But we will be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
We're getting strange on Saturday nights. Hi there, this is Dave Cruz, and each Saturday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I will take you on a tour of the weird and obtuse on Spaced Out Saturdays. From aliens to Sasquatch and every tinfoil hat in between, we got you covered. Join us at spacedoutradio.com for Spaced Out Saturdays. See you there.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on spacedoutradio.com.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Good evening and welcome back to Spaced Out Radio tonight. Hour number 3 is underway. Tomorrow night on the program, Jamie Sexton from Rebel Planet News is going to be back. We're going to get into the Las Vegas situation that happened a few weeks ago as that is his hometown, and we're going to see what happened there and what he's been able to uncover in that strange massacre at the country music concert. So we're going to get into that 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We are also live on KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Brobdingnan. Oh, I totally butchered that one. Brobdingnan. Brobdingnan. You know, I even played a pronunciation video on this, and I still can't get it. Brobdingnan. I think that's it. Well, either way, that's your password for tonight. Use it wisely, Space Travelers. Yeah, don't follow it from me. Brobdingnan. There we go. Anyhow, we're moving on. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can also join us for live chat on Facebook at the SOR Space Travelers Room. You can also follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Tune us in on TuneIn, listen to us on iHeartRadio in the United States, TalkStream Live, and you can also download and subscribe our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read the Encounter online, rock out to some Bumblefoot, or watch great videos from UFO Seekers and Contact TV, everything at spacedoutradio.com. Tonight we are talking with Amber Avalona. We're talking Paranormal Healing Project and everything to do with ghosts and ghouls and goblins. Amber, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, I do want to say I have missed a couple of questions. So if I've missed your question and you want Amber to ask it or me to ask Amber, do me a favor, repost it if you're in one of the chat rooms. I will get to it. That's only if you're on Spreaker or Twitter. I may have missed it. SOR Space Travelers Group, I got you covered there, so no worries there. Amber, let's start off this hour with another haunted story that you have. What's the most difficult case you've ever worked?
Yeah, probably one of the most difficult cases that I ever worked was the St. James Hotel here in New Mexico. And I actually never even went to it, but basically what happened was when I was preparing to go, I was pretty much attacked and by a spirit, and I got extremely sick, like to the point where I was throwing up. I couldn't keep anything down. I could barely move. And so that night I was trying to do a shamanic healing ceremony on myself. And it turned out that I found out through the ceremony, it was shown to me that the St. James Hotel had been cursed a very long time ago. I don't know. I'm sure that many people, many listeners know about the St. James Hotel and its haunted history. And it's in Cimarron, New Mexico. And it was cursed by a Native American, a very strong Native American, a long time ago. And I could definitely understand why he had cursed the hotel. It was at a time when the Native Americans were treated very poorly by our government and sometimes by just the settlers in general. And so what had happened was through this extremely strong curse that was used, is that when people died, they were trapped in the hotel. These people who had lived there, they couldn't leave. And so that's where part of that haunting, those hauntings came from. And what was interesting is over the years, in the research that I did after the fact, I found where empath after empath who tried to get close to the St. James Hotel in investigations, if there was the most sensitive person on the investigation would get severely ill. And everybody else might be fine, but it was that person who was targeted. And I think it was because it was a way to try to keep this curse under wraps. That took a lot of effort to clear and to cleanse, and it actually sent me to the hospital. And when I was sent to the hospital for the throwing up and the severe dehydration, and then I had a horrible reaction to the medication that they gave me. And the emergency room, they couldn't find any physical cause for what was happening to me. And so that was a tough time for me. It took a while to get over. I broke two toes when I was going through this process of helping to cleanse and clear that curse. And I ended up becoming very familiar with this spirit who had instigated this curse, and we developed respect for each other. And so it was a very interesting situation the way that it turned out. But in clearing that curse, I was able to also clear something that had gone through the brains of all of the discarnates, the spirits that were there in the hotel. It was like maybe, it was so odd. It was almost as if it was going from the brain of every single ghost from one to the other. And it was maybe like locking them all together, but also messing with their minds. So potentially, I don't know exactly what it was doing. Maybe it was so they didn't know how much time had passed, or who knows. I didn't get into it that much. But that was an extremely difficult case, just because of the amount of backlash that happened. And I'm definitely not going into complete detail, but that was hard. And whenever you're dealing with curses like that, there's definitely the potential for you to bear the brunt of some of that curse as well. Because when you're cleansing it, sometimes there can be what people can do is they can put a safeguard mechanism in that curse. So if you try to clear it, there's this secondary curse that will kick into effect that will attack the person who's trying to clear it. And so it was hard. It was very hard, but I was so happy that it was cleansed. And never told the people, I guess, who owned it about it, but I had some friends who were investigators who said that after I did that work, that the next time that they went back, which was pretty soon after that, that the owners had started completely renovating the entire hotel. So somehow it had opened up the energy of the hotel, and things had even started physically changing.
When I hear a story like that, it makes me wonder what is causing all of that type of energy. Do you think it's just residual from the age of the building, or do you think it's a matter of one or two spirits that could be causing all of that?
Causing all of the haunted activity?
Yeah.
No, in that case, my opinion and from what I saw, is that they were active hauntings. It wasn't residual, unfortunately. And I even had the spirit of one of the famous gentlemen contact me. Like he came to visit me in my home, and he asked me to bring my shamanic drum with me when I was going to go on the investigation, which I thought was very odd. He was asking like for my help. And that was before I knew that there was this Native American curse on the facility. So somehow he was trying to get the message to me. And so it was definitely very active. They were intelligent spirits and entities. So some of them, if not all of them, knew what was going on, but they were held there. It was almost as if they were imprisoned in that hotel because of, well, I mean, just look at what the government did, where they took all of the Native Americans and basically imprisoned them on the reservations, right? And probably moved them off of that land and that property where that hotel was. That could have been somebody's home. And so who knows what type of emotional love somebody who had lived there would have had for that land. And this hotel goes up. You know, we don't know what these types of things, what our choices sometimes, how much they can really hurt and affect somebody else and drive them to do very dark things in the name of justice or revenge or, trying to get even. And then it snowballs into something that's beyond most anyone's control. It's definitely dangerous. But when you really start to dissect it, you can understand why people do what they do.
Let's get to Robin's.
Kind of human nature.
Amber, let's get to Robin's question here. He says, I was ghost hunting in Seattle at the USS Turner Joy. I was with someone I don't usually work with. We were in the officers' mess hall. He was more in wanting them to show a sign that they were there in a more higher voice. Something did happen. He wasn't, as in Robin, wasn't able to move. He closed his eyes. He could see them or think that he saw them. Do you think that was because it was him or because his family has ties to the military?
Well, I'm a former military spouse, and I also wrote as a reporter for an Army newspaper for a while. I loved that job. And so I have connections with the special forces, special operations, things like that. I have very deep appreciation for and respect for the military and what they do. I would think that anybody who comes to an investigation in a military type environment like that, who is probably projecting that same type of aura, because it's palpable. I mean, you can definitely tell that they would be more prone to probably being able to connect with certain spirits than somebody who maybe just wants a reaction for reaction's sake. That's just kind of my opinion.
Catherine is asking, can one person's past lives haunt that person's present life?
Definitely. Yeah. And that could be in a number of ways, but one of the ways could be in the form of karma or karmic relationships as well. What's strange is that people can even, where you've had somebody in a fit of anger or rage say, I will haunt you, And that can actually be a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, where that person has been able to haunt that other person in future lifetimes, and in some form or another, whether they produce some type of phenomenon where things are happening in the home through bad luck, through just coming back and being in a relationship with that person and making their life a living hell, or through causing the same type of, let's say that they think that they were harmed or hurt in a certain way, they can then cause that other person in a future lifetime to experience that same thing, but from a victim's standpoint. And it doesn't have to be physical, like a physical relationship. The tormentor can be paranormal. So it can be an unseen tormentor who is doing the exact same thing to that person who was the tormentor in a prior lifetime. Like crazy things. It's just unbelievable, kind of the things that can happen. And that's because, in my opinion, the human imagination, going back to that, can create the very things that we then experience in our lives.
We are getting flooded with questions right now, so I'm going to get to Sunny's. And she is asking,
okay.
There's a little bit of a story behind this one. She goes, her mother had a near-death experience when she was in a near-fatal car accident. Sunny was just a girl, an infant at the time, and was not in the car with her mom at the time. Thank goodness. She was thrown from the vehicle and was injured so badly that she was in a coma for weeks. Her body was failing, and she dies for a short time before being revived and woken up. She said that before she woke up in the hospital, a being, which she referred to as an angel, came to her and told her that if she stayed, she would experience many hardships, but she could choose to remain alive if she wanted. Her mom said she needed to be here for her baby. That being promised that she would help her mother by helping the daughter as well. That way, mom tells the story, and the consistency in every tie she has shared, it makes her believe that this really did happen as an experience. Do you think, and here's the question, that her mom was being guided through by an angel of some sort of guide? And is there a way for this person to contact them?
To contact the angel or the guide?
Yes.
Well, I myself have had an NDE, near-death experience, and I remembered part of what happened when I was on the other side or over. And so, yeah, I definitely think that could happen, that she could be visited by an angel or another light being. Sometimes there are very high vibrational beings in the upper realms. So say it's a being in a 7th dimensional realm or even higher, that they glow as if they are angelic. We don't talk about that a lot, but that does happen. And it's fine, in my opinion, right? It doesn't mean that it's any different of an experience. It's beautiful, regardless of who visits you. So I think that what she could do is she could ask for more insight into who it was that visited her. And what I always do when I want more insight is I just ask the universe. I'm like, okay, can you please show me what it is that I need to know? Or I have a question about this. Would you please direct me to the information that I need? So that's what your mom can do, is just say, if I'm supposed to know more about this, would you please show me, and just do it in this energy of it's going to happen. So there's no urgency attached to it. You're just asking the request, and it's flowing through you and out into the universe, and then you kind of just release it. And it can be amazing sometimes what happens. But I think it's beautiful that she chose to stay and to be with you and to help you, even though she knew that her life would be hard and that she would have some difficult experiences. That's a lot of love and a lot of dedication. Shows you're very fortunate. And there are some people, probably a lot of people, who don't have a mother as caring and protective as that. So it's definitely something to be appreciative of every day.
Adam has a question here, and he is asking, does distance matter when it comes to curses?
No, unfortunately it doesn't. A lot of it has to do with the energy and the power of the person who is uttering the curse. And so distance really has nothing to do with it, that I have found. And for instance, one of the horrible things that people can do is, I don't know if people have heard of skull candles, but they're candles that are in the shape of a human skull. And what they do with those skull candles is they take the pins, right, the needles, and they can insert them into different parts of that skull candle. So like the frontal lobe, the temporal lobe. I mean, if they want to affect somebody's personality, their speaking and writing, their body movement, they insert that pin into the frontal lobe. And so they can, affect that other person's brain via that way. So I was talking earlier about there are some people that have crazy, their brain just doesn't seem to be working right. Some of those people are in the news a lot. And you just think that that person's not right in the head. And it could very well be that that person is the victim of some type of hoodoo, cursing, or crossing using magic, dark arts, using the skull candles, somebody messing with them. And in those cases, it really doesn't matter the physical proximity. It's all about the power and the intent behind those techniques that they're using to issue that curse.
Let's get to another question from John, and he is asking, Amber, do you think black magicians attacking you, if they have, could be a part of some sort of an Illuminati type thing?
Oh, that's weird that you would say that. Yeah, I actually do. And it's something that I have felt for a while, and I don't know much about the Illuminati, and so I have been trying to research it. But I do know that, yes, I'll say that from what I do know, it is connected.
Let's move over to Twitter here. And Andrew is asking, you mentioned a shamanic perspective. First Nations concepts are real for you. What warnings come from the shamanic realm?
Well, you always travel with your guides when you go to the shamanic realm. So they always recommend that you travel with your animal guide. And because you never want to do something like that alone. And so what the animal guide will do is the animal guide will protect you during your journey to either the lower world, or lower earth, the middle earth, or the upper earth, upper world. And you always want to be very careful that you're surrounded by that type of protection, kind of like the buddy system, I guess you would call it. And you want to make sure that when you encounter, say, an entity in the lower realm, that you question it. So if it presents itself as one thing, which I have had happen before in the lower realm, that you test it. So I've had them present themselves as something very beautiful, like a beautiful, like, say, witch or something like that. And then when my animal guide would test it and ask it to show its true self, it would turn into this horrible looking, figure. So you can always ask for your animal guide to do that type of, to have that conversation with something before you engage it further. You want to be careful of something that approaches you in the spirit world. And you also want to just accept things as they happen and not question the reality of it. You kind of really got to just open up your mind and say, all right, this is what I'm seeing. This is what's going on. Write down all of your notes afterward if you want to, and not try to censor yourself. Sometimes we'll want to keep something from happening in the spirit realm because it's like too out there for our own belief system. And that's really trying to insert, like in my case, my belief system onto an infinite, I'll just use that term, like multiverse, or like an infinite form of consciousness. And so you always just want to be very, like I said, open. Those are some of the things you want to protect your aura before you go in to any type of journey like that. And it's always great if you have a drumming track or something, if you want to use that. Sandra Ingerman has a great drumming track, actually 3 of them, with one of her books. And that just kind of gets you into that altered state of consciousness. And read books and stuff like that so that you're more informed, I think, when you engage in your shamanic studies. So have fun with it too, right?
Follow-up from Andrew on Twitter. What warnings are repeating from the shamanic realm to the people here on Earth?
Well, I haven't asked about large scale, but I will kind of go into some of the stuff that I've gotten over the past couple years. So one of the things that I got from the spirit realm, and I won't necessarily say it was the shamanic realm, but the spirit realm, sometimes those are interchangeable for me, sometimes they're not. But what I was told by the spirit realm during the election, this was before Trump was even elected, and this was when he was just starting out. There were probably, about 17 people running on the Republican side. I don't remember. There were a lot. And I was basically told that when I asked about the election, I was told that in a sense he would likely be in office, and I'll leave my personal thoughts about that out of this narrative, but what was shown to me was that if he hadn't been in office, I did see that if someone else had been elected, that I was shown that America being invaded from the north, from Canada, from the western side of Canada. And so, but it wasn't, of course, Canada invading the United States. It was a country in the, what we would probably call the eastern part of the world. And that was really interesting to me. So when all of this transpired and he became president and all this came out about him and the collusions with Russia, I did wonder if potentially that had something to do with it, and if it was just another form of invasion, but in a different format. Like if it hadn't happened this way, having this president in office, that it would have been a more physical invasion. But so those are kind of the things that I'm shown. As far as personally, the things with Weinstein, when I looked into it, you know, with Hollywood recently, I was shown that one of the things that I was shown is wasn't just himself. I saw a group of people in long robes with white masks on, so some type of ritualistic setting. I have my own opinions about what that would mean, but I think that there's a lot more to that story than is probably even being told right now. And so we just need to remember that there will always be people and or entities trying to control us. However, we have this amazing capacity as human beings to be free. And that is, that's our right as human beings. And nobody can ever take that away from us. We always have a choice. Like we always have the ability to make choices. And so that's something that we always want to hold on to, is just to remember that you always do have a choice in your life. You are never completely controlled by anyone or anything. And just remember to try to call in as much protection and spiritual support as possible if that's what you want to do, is to be a part of the positive shifts that are happening, like the beautiful things that are going on in this world. And believe me, you will be used because there is so much going on now. I cannot even go into everything that has happened just with me over the past 2 months, since August, with the solar eclipse. And, you know, and also this is the year of secret enemies. So from March of 2017 to, I believe it's March or maybe April of 2018. I'd have to look into that again. But with Vedic astrology, that is the time period of secret enemies. So we're going to have a lot of secret enemies being revealed and or secret enemies working against people. And you know, just intend that it's all for your highest good and healing, and just make sure that you're not that secret enemy.
Let's get to Alan's question here. And let me just scroll on up here. Amber, can attachments originate from any of the higher densities? For example, fifth density Orion group reptilians, negative attachment, things like that.
Ugh. I'm not sure if reptilians are fifth dimension. They could be. I do know that they're fourth dimension, but yeah, so you could have reptilians, definitely reptilian attachments, and that's something I've worked with before. They're very, very difficult to remove, and I believe that I mentioned it in the last interview with you, is that those are the cases that are worse than the demonic cases that I've worked on. And so some of the really horrible movies that are out there about apparent, demonic possessions and stuff like that, in my opinion, I don't believe that they're completely demonic. I do believe that some of those are reptilian. So yeah, you can have stuff like that attached to you.
Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Robin, who is asking, have you ever encountered a wraith?
Yes, I have encountered a wraith. And I'm actually just looking that up to make sure I'm using the right term, because okay, sometimes I believe that in this instance they're probably talking about the one that you see right after somebody dies. I'm not sure if that's the kind of wraith that somebody's talking about. Sometimes it's a term that's used for like a spirit double of somebody that can attack you in your dreams, and it's almost like a wraith like entity. But yeah, I have encountered I don't want to, because I deal with such dark stuff and that type of thing. I have had, for some reason, I get funneled some of these really horrible cases in the news that you'll see. So just recently I had one of the cases in the news where the person that murdered people and then committed suicide appeared in my apartment right afterward, and I had to go about the process of removing him and also doing work to completely adjust some of the carnage that he had caused prior to his death. So yeah, those types of things do show up in my apartment, do show up in my life.
You almost sound hesitant to discuss that. Is it because bringing attention to them can bring the energy up?
I don't know why I'm hesitant exactly to discuss that particular one. I think part of it is that I believe from what I saw that there was something else going on as well. He was extremely angry. And it was difficult for me because what had happened was I had woken up that next morning and for some reason my mirror in my sink in my bathroom area is a portal. So sometimes something puts things through that portal. And so he basically he was sent through that portal. And so I first saw him staring at me like I was looking in the mirror, but I was seeing him through my eyes. It was the weirdest thing, and it was attached to me. And so it's just a very difficult experience for me, because I saw his rage, and at first I didn't know who it was. And right after that, I got online and I was looking at the news, and I figured out who it was because I saw the picture, and he was still attached to me at that point. So I had to do a lot of work to release him, as well as to help to, I had to go back in. With shamans, it's very easy for us to skip, and time is fluid. So it's very easy for us to go, quote, back in time, or to do work on things that have, quote, already happened. So I had to go back in time, and I had to do a lot of work on that situation that happened, helping some people, preventing that situation from being a lot worse than it could have been, calling down special teams from the higher dimensions that deal with that type of situation to completely, basically close off and surround that person. And so it was. I don't know. I don't also want to go into too much detail because.
Well, if you're uncomfortable, I'm not going to push you that far with it. Let's get to another question.
I think it's too raw, maybe, for a lot of people, too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what was the next question?
Shar is asking, do you remote view homes for spirits?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do that, remote view home. I would rather remote view than to actually go to a home a lot of times. And I would prefer to shamanic journey to a place, because you can sometimes see a lot more than if you just walk into a place, at least for myself, because you are basically inserting yourself into the dimension of those beings, rather than expecting those entities to show up in your dimension. And so that's the way that I work.
Let's get to another question here. This one coming from Michael, who is asking if you've ever seen Bilbo Baggins.
I wish. I'll leave it at that.
I don't even know who that is. I just asked the questions around here.
Bilbo Baggins, Lord of the Rings.
I've never seen Lord of the Rings.
The Hobbit. Lord of the Rings.
I'm one of those weirdos who's never seen it.
I love Tolkien. Yeah.
Not me, man.
Yeah, Tolkien, awesome.
Let's get to Ron's question here. Ron is asking, is it disrespectful, in your opinion, to investigate a graveyard?
I don't think so. I'm definitely open to other people's opinion, and I can understand how people would think it would be disrespectful, but I really don't think so. I mean, there are so many spirits, and from my experience that I've seen just walking around our own homes and everywhere else, that I can't find a difference between a graveyard and the rest of the world.
We were out geocaching a few weeks ago, and I came across this graveyard that I didn't even know was there. Brand new area. I'd never been in that area. And I'll tell you, the energy was fierce there. Not in a bad way, but it was just, picking up energy left, right, and center because, the graveyard was, having people in there who were born in the late 1800s. And it's amazing. It was really the first graveyard, and I've walked through a number of them, where I actually felt energy coming out of it. And do you notice that as well, that certain graveyards that you've checked out just don't seem to have an energetic or paranormal type pattern to them?
Well, what's crazy is that sometimes graveyards can be magically charged, and so they'll be really different from other graveyards, and sometimes they can be disturbed that way, and so the energy is very erratic. So you'll have people who will go to a graveyard and get graveyard dirt from a grave, and they'll use that in their hoodoo spells to torment or jinx or take revenge on their enemies or something like that. So to curse or cross somebody. And so when you're taking that graveyard dirt of someone who is in that grave, you're basically disturbing that person. And you're using part of their energy for a very negative purpose. Most likely. And so that can be a really bad thing to do. And so people can find sometimes, too, that there will be spirits attached to a home that you can find no logical reason why that spirit's there. And it could be because of the connection of the curse and somebody using graveyard dirt from that person's own grave. So, yeah, there's all sorts of things that can happen in graveyards to make it seem kind of wonky.
I'm going to answer Ron's question here. He's saying, is flashlight fishing ethical? No, it's not. No, it's not, because fish move mostly during the night and they settle in the holes during the day. So if you're flashlight fishing, it is illegal, at least here in British Columbia. And I don't agree with it. So don't do that. Give the fish a chance to get upstream, man. Come on, it's about the fish, and I'm dead serious about that. We don't illegal fish around here. Oh, sorry, I had to get that vent out. Had to get that vent out.
I'm a vegetarian, so I would say, I don't fish at all. So I'm probably not the person to ask that question. So it's a good thing you.
Yeah, I took that one. I took that one.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Not a problem. As time winds down, because literally we have about 5 minutes left with you here tonight, I want to say thank you for being an emergency fill-in in regards to helping us out here on the show. You're pretty amazing for that, so thank you so much. As Halloween approaches, a lot of people talk about this veil, whether it thins out at this time of year. And I'm not a big believer in the whole veil thing. To me, it sounds like a cop-out excuse. I don't know why, but I just get that feeling. Are you a big believer in the whole veil mystery?
I have not done a lot of personal research on it, but it would seem to potentially makes sense. I'm open to the idea of it being thinner just because of the fact that we go through so many different shifts in our world. So, maybe why not? Because you're going through different seasons, right? Where you have spring, summer, fall, winter. I can't dispute that our Earth has that going on. And so maybe there is something similar in the spirit world that I don't quite understand, that would be something like a, spring, summer, fall, winter, where there are just different cycles that they go through, and where the energy just shifts and is different. I don't know. It's a really good question. But sometimes also, as we have found, believing in something, and the more people who believe in it and do these rituals around Samhain and Halloween and around the Day of the Dead, can just infuse that time period regardless with that type of energy, and it creates this portal in and of itself. So that might be going on also.
So as we approach Halloween, do you have any advice for people who are going out or thinking about trying to get a little mystical with the paranormal?
Have a safeguard. If you're going to explore, know what you're going to do ahead of time, and by all means, please keep all the animals safe. Like, respect every living thing, and be good. That's what I would say. And treat others like the golden rule. I think applies to everything. Treat others as you would have them treat you. And I guess if you're kind of sadistic, then pretend you're not, and then use the golden rule. So but have fun. Also, I love Halloween. I think it's an amazing time where people can just pretend and use their imaginations as adults, and get into the fun of things. And so embrace it. Embrace the energy and the the jovial sense of the season. So that would be.
With children going out trick-or-treating and the supposed veil being thinner, should parents ground their children before they head out trick-or-treatings?
Definitely, right. Yeah, definitely protect your children, always, because they're more open. And you can even use amulets if you want to get an amulet, or certain stones if you want to get a protective stone to use. And I don't have time to go into, any of that, but just look online for all of those protective techniques. Like I said, burn protective incense or essential oils in your home. You can even put protective oils on your kids' wrists and things like that. Burn candles, dress them with magic oils, protective oils.
I never would have thought of that until I asked you. You have been amazing tonight, Amber Avalona. Just another regular treat that we like to serve up cold to our Spaced Out Radio listeners. Good to have you back.
Oh, it's good to be back.
We have to do this more often. We're going to have to reel you back in here soon.
I think that if people like that, and I definitely enjoy it, I'd be happy to come back. Everybody has such amazing questions, so I really do thank you all for just being involved and asking me all of these, because you help the other listeners as well by asking these questions.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to get you to hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up on this end. Amber Avalona, Paranormal Healing Project. She is one fantastic and very smart lady when it comes to dealing with all things paranormal. You might hear her around here a little bit more often. I got to talk to her off the air to convince her of that. Twist her arm a little bit. Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking us in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. That's because we love to rock and roll around here. Tomorrow night on the program, it's going to be a very interesting show. Jamie Sexton from Rebel Planet News makes his monthly appearance. We're going to get into the Las Vegas Massacre It's going to be our first time really talking about it on this show. There's still some things that don't add up. We're going to check that out tomorrow night with Jamie Sexton, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. I want to say thank you to my great team who is helping build this show bigger and better, but the real people behind the scenes are the people in the chat rooms, on Twitter, who continue to pump this show out into the public, share our posts, share it with friends, share our tweets, tweeting us when you don't even have to, and I say thank you for that every single night. We're getting bigger and better every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a good one, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow. Good night.